30 cases of community transmission. 11 of those were already in isolation, which is positive. The balance of those cases are all linked, which is another positive.
The Bondi clusters swelled to 110 cases. 2 more are under investigation. 4 people are in hospital. 1 is in ICU. Chief among concerns for contact tracers, a seafood wholesaler in Sydney's west, which has now led to a Virgin crew member travelling for 2 days along the east coast while infectious.
Any person who attended or directly received a delivery from Great Ocean Foods must immediately get tested and isolate.
The Premier foreshadowing the worst is yet to come.
Given how contagious this strain of the virus is, case numbers are likely to increase even beyond what we've seen today.
And despite pleas for Sydney-siders to do the right thing,
so long as you maintain good social distancing, there's no need to wear a mask.
Social distancing was not a priority for many at Bondi Beach today, while panic buyings once again reached fever pitch. Shoppers clearing shelves and hoarding toilet paper at this Central Coast supermarket.
Again, we just all shake our heads. It's simply not required. People should not do that.
But today, criticism Sydney should have locked down sooner.
She waited too long. There's no doubt about it.
All the epidemiologists I've seen says she was too slow. The AMA says she was too slow.
The government's frustration with some media clearly evident.
You're journalists, you're not epidemiologists.
But the Premier is standing by her decision.
I don't regret a single decision we've taken. When you're making a major decision to lock down millions and millions of people, you have to make sure it's based on the health advice and not because you want to turn up with 0 cases every day.
Well, Professor Peter Collignon is an infectious diseases expert. Professor, the Premier is standing by her decision to hold off on implementing a lockdown until yesterday. Has that set things back?
Well, not necessarily. If you do anything such as a lockdown, you won't really see an effect for about 5 to 7 days anyway, because the average incubation period is 5 days and can be out as far as 14 days. So to my mind, the criteria for a lockdown is having lots of unlinked mystery cases, because it means for every one you found, there's another person out there you haven't found. Or once you start getting to large numbers and 30 to 40 cases a day, even though you've traced them all and they're linked, that's starting to get to big numbers. But we're only in that situation in the last couple of days. So I don't at all disagree with the decision to wait for those sort of criteria before you implement these sort of restrictions.
The Premier has said consistently that the government has been following the health advice all along, but given that this is different to the Alpha strain, this Delta strain is so much more contagious, does it mean that for the last week the health advice could possibly have been a little out of kilter?
Well, you can get different health advice from different health experts, but at the end of the day, this strain still spreads the same way. I mean, it's in large numbers in England and other places. So the basics that we've been doing should still work. The real problem is, I think there's we're all more complacent than we were a year ago. Winter is just the time you expect these outbreaks to occur. So we've got a problem between now and probably early October, early spring. And we need to actually, even after this passes, which I think it will, we'll have a problem for 2 or 3 weeks and then it'll go down to low numbers. We need to actually do those things that we need work, and that's indoor masking if there's any people with infections, but particularly keep numbers down inside. I think we need to have the 4 square metre rule. People who are sick, don't go near other people, even in your own home. Don't go to work, get tested. And, in bars, for instance, I think it's a good idea we don't have people walking around and standing around until we get 70% of the population vaccinated, the adults vaccinated. That will happen over the next few months, but it's not going to happen over winter. So we're going to have to learn with restrictions. Don't have full football crowds, keep the numbers down, be outdoors more than indoors, etc., etc. All of that decreases the risk, helps us not to become complacent, and overall puts us in a better position, which we're in a very good position still in Australia. We want to keep that way. It means we're going to have to live with some restrictions over the next few months, but that doesn't mean we all have to be locked down for the next 3 months.
Professor, though, the scenario you're painting, though, is really different to the life we've been living for some time now in Australia. Ongoing restrictions until 80% of the population or 70% is vaccinated. We are miles off that. Is what you're talking about realistic to expect of Australians if and when we get back to not many cases at all?
Well, I think we can actually vaccinate about 1 million people a week now. We've got enough AstraZeneca vaccine to do that. and we're getting about 200,000 or 300,000 doses of a Pfizer vaccine in per week. So I think a million a week is feasible.
We're phasing out
in a couple of months'
AstraZeneca,
time.
aren't we?
Well, we're only phasing it out because after it's given for the next few months, everybody over the age of 60 should have been vaccinated. Because by the time October comes, everybody should have had their first dose and, in fact, their second dose. So if we want to not give that or recommend it for people under the age of 60, there won't be a huge need for AstraZeneca anymore. What there'll be a need for is the Novavax, the Moderna and the Pfizer. US is now letting exports go out of that country, and in 2 months' time, hopefully we'll get 1 million doses a week of those 3 vaccines, so we then can vaccinate our 30, 40-year-olds in big numbers. It's not inconceivable to me that we should be able to vaccinate 2 million people a week, but we need supplies. That's not going to happen for another couple of months, but up until then, we've got 1 million doses a week. We should be able to vaccinate and get out there.
We should, Peter, but we've still got a huge problem with vaccine hesitancy. How do you address that?
Well, yeah, but to some degree, I don't think we've got empty lines at vaccination centres. So vaccine hesitancy is an issue, but so far the supply is more of an issue than the hesitancy. Now, that might change with time. The only good news of these outbreaks, as soon as these happen, people realise that, look, there is a 1 in a million chance that I might die after getting the AstraZeneca vaccine, or 1 in 2 million. But if I'm over the age of 80, my chance of dying if I get COVID is 1 in 10. At the age of 70, it's 2 in 100. And even at 60, it's 1 in a few hundred. So, look, if COVID spreads, I hope it doesn't. I hope we get, and I presume we'll get control, but we can't guarantee that. If you are in an age above 60, there is enough vaccine for you. You are the people that are more likely to die going to hospital. The vaccine is there. Go out and see your GP or wherever you can get it in the next week or so. Get your first dose. And if we do have spread, you can have your second dose earlier. The original recommendations was a month apart. The reason it's 3 months apart, in England, it was the only way to get first dose to lots of people. So that hopefully will still be the situation here, but we've got lots of options to protect those where more than 90% of deaths occur, and that's people over the age of 70 or over the age of 60.
All right, Professor, it is a very fluid situation. We appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. 1 to 2 million vaccinations a week. That seems like, with respect to the professor, like a universe away from where we're at.
Well, the numbers in the last week in Sydney and Melbourne have been going down. Like when Victoria had those vaccine hubs happening and there was a bit of a scare going on, the numbers went up, but they've come back down again. Sydney is still languishing because we don't have vaccine hubs.
And it's all in the public health messaging. There's been this undercurrent of cynicism around the AstraZeneca shot. So people are naturally reluctant to get those 1 to 2 million people a week being vaccinated. That's going to require a huge amount of PR to actually encourage people to do that.
I suppose the thing you've got to hope right now is that, like when there was an outbreak in Melbourne, it drove the vaccination rates up. Hopefully in Sydney and elsewhere, people are going to be flocking to their clinic to get it.
With so much content online, it's sometimes hard to keep up with it all. And let's face it, who has the time? The Project YouTube has you covered with the stories that matter. Hit subscribe for a daily list of the news that you need to know.